WHIP Radio here in Philadelphia at Temple University. Historic night on both ends of the aisle. The Republicans are obviously have Donald Trump, who was the GOP nominee, and last night, historic night for the Democrats, as Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. And of course, a lot went on. Truly historic night, and luckily right now we are joined by United States Congressman representing the 13th District in Pennsylvania. That is Congressman Brendan Boyle. Congressman Boyle, how are you this morning?
Very good, thank you. Good to be on here.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. And last night I was actually in attendance at the Hillary watch party to cover it, considering Mayor Jim Kenney was there, and I got his opinion on just how historic a night it was, and he talked about Hillary being the one to carry the mantle into the next era of American politics and leading America forward. I know you endorsed Secretary Clinton as well. Talk about her fight to get to where she is right now and why you ended up endorsing her.
Well, yeah, I was really struck last night by listening to the speech, the history-making nature of it, and she's been such dominant political figure for so long that it was actually easy to forget just how historic last night was, and her officially clinching and becoming the first woman in American history to be the nominee of a major party. I ended up endorsing her, though, not anything having to do with gender or history or any of that. I simply endorsed her because in the end I thought that she was the best candidate. I remained open-minded, actually neutral throughout the race. Early on, when I gave interviews to the New York Times, I said I was glad that Bernie was running because I thought that he raised issues and gave them a prominence they otherwise might not have had. And I still feel that way today, particularly when it comes to the income inequality issue. So I'm glad that Bernie ran. Frankly, I think that his campaign has been overall a positive. But in the end, I felt that Hillary Clinton was the best prepared to be president. I thought she had the best practical plans to not only take these ideas and policies, but actually make them law. Because there's one thing to have the ideas and the purity of one's positions, but I'm more interested in them actually becoming law and changing things. And I think that Hillary Clinton gave us that best combination. I also think that she is our best nominee to take on someone like Donald Trump, who is not a normal Republican. I mean, I wrote an op-ed a few months ago for the Philly Voice in which I pointed out that there have been Republican candidates who I may disagree with on policy issues, but I would have never called them and never called them dangerous. I feel that way about Donald Trump. I mean, I do think he's so outside the norm of what we're used to that it's really important that he is stopped and not elected this November.
Congressman, you mentioned that you're happy that Senator Bernie Sanders entered the race, and as we know that Hillary is the presumptive nominee now, do you think it's time for Bernie to call off the campaign?
Well, I had always resisted those calls for him to drop out. I thought that it was his right to fight it all the way through to the end. Now we have gone through to the end. Every state has voted. I guess D.C. actually has to vote next week. So once D.C. has voted next week, then every single contest is over. She's won the most votes, has won the most delegates. So I'm not sure what the point would be of his continuing when there's no longer a path. His only available path would be getting the superdelegates to completely overrule the will of the voting public. So I don't see what other path there would be for him. Now, if he wants to make sure he has a prominent role at the convention, maybe he wants to go through the roll call process, which is actually a very sort of pop and circumstance kind of thing, and I could understand if you'd want to go through that. But I just hope that Bernie takes a step back and thinks about the entire movement that he's helped lead, and that really, in the end, it's about the issues that he's been fighting for and not him personally. And if he elevates those issues and thinks about what's more important, then I'm confident he'll do the right thing.
Congressman Boyle, Ryan Frascella here. Do any of the issues in Hillary Clinton's past worry you about her ability to win the presidency or even attract the support of Bernie Sanders supporters?
Well, the fact is that Hillary Clinton is someone who, for 25 years, has been pretty well vetted and pretty heavily attacked by the other side. So it doesn't concern me that she'll be able to weather those attacks. It's impossible for the other side to come up with something new when it relates to Hillary. So no, I'm not terribly concerned really about any of those things. I also think that politicians make a mistake when they try to make campaigns about the candidates and instead should focus on making really about the public and what will improve people's lives.
Joining us on WHIP Radio right now, Congressman Brendan Boyle, representing the 13th District in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, Congressman, we talked about the Democratic side and how historic last night truly was in leading up to the convention here in the city of Philadelphia. But you talked about the person you're trying to stop to become president, and that is the GOP nominee, Donald Trump. And it's controversial comment after controversial comment, and I'm sure you have some thoughts on it. So I want to hear what you have to say about his most recent comments about the judge born in Indiana but of Mexican descent, and what you think. How do you think Trump is out of line with these comments, and ultimately, what do you think of his candidacy for the White House?
I think Donald Trump is a disgrace, and I think that his comments about Judge Curiel are outrageous. It's pretty clear to me Donald Trump doesn't even understand the magic of America and what it means to be an American. By his standard, here's a judge who was born and raised in the state of Indiana, the Hoosier state, about as middle America as it gets. If he's not an American just because his parents were immigrants from Mexico, well, then by that same standard, I wouldn't be American. Even though I'm born and raised in the city of Philadelphia, I'm proud of it. My father's an immigrant, born and raised in Ireland. My mom's parents, actually all four of my grandparents, are Irish-born. So I guess by Donald Trump's standard, then I wouldn't be an American. But what's funny is, by Trump's standard, he also wouldn't be an American, since his mother was born and raised in Scotland. But Trump is wrong. The fact is that Judge Curiel is American, I'm American, Trump is American. If you are born and raised in this country, or you're a naturalized citizen, you're committed to the Constitution, to the values of this country, believe in it, you are American, and you're just as American as someone who is a descendant of those who came over on the Mayflower. No more, no less. That is the magic of America, that we're a country not of a single race, but built on principles and ideals. Really, for someone to run for the presidency of the United States and not understand what makes us special is absolutely remarkable. And by the way, that's just one comment of, we could, fill the whole day about outrageous comments that he's made. I really don't think he's someone who is suited to be sitting in the Oval Office and have the nuclear codes.
Congressman, does it surprise you at all that even after controversial comment after controversial comment, his numbers continue to rise?
I've been completely wrong about the Donald Trump candidacy from day one. I never thought he would get this far. I always thought that the Republicans would end up nominating someone more electable, someone more like a John Kasich or Marco Rubio. Actually, Rubio was my prediction from day one. I thought he would have been their most electable candidate. But so I'm probably the worst person to ask because while I'm pretty good about political prognostication, I have been so wrong about Trump. I will say that I get the feeling, and we'll see the polling that comes out this week, I do get the feeling, though, that the outright racist attack on this federal judge, I have a feeling that that is different. I mean, you're seeing Republicans who have endorsed Trump actually do an about-face and turn around and say that they won't endorse him. I do think finally, at last, he may have gone beyond the pale even for them, and but we shall see.
Last question here for Congressman Boyle, and you talked about some of these Republicans kind of reluctantly endorsing Donald Trump, and we've seen just recently about these comments that Senator Mark Kirk, I believe from the state of Illinois, rescinded his endorsement. So do you think there's any chance in the 11th hour that the Republicans try to switch someone else in there to be their nominee?
It's a fascinating scenario. Of course, it is something they still could do, but I would be very surprised if that ultimately happened, because it would create such a backlash. That said, though, the Republicans, it's not just Trump. The Republican Party, and part of the reason why they've, for the last decade and a half, scared off places that I represent, places like Northeast Philly and the suburbs of Montgomery County, places that have been open and voted Republican before. I see it in the House every day. There is such a strong element of extremism among that Republican core electorate that has made compromise impossible, that has really whipped things up to the point where they can't even agree on anything with Obama. If Obama says the sun will rise in the east, there's a certain core member of the Tea Party that will disagree with him on that. Trump has taken advantage of something that was already there in the core Republican side, and until they deal with that problem, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to win any sort of broader general election.
Thank you very much. That's United States Congressman Brendan Boyle representing the 13th District in Pennsylvania. We appreciate a few minutes here a day after a very historic day in American politics, and we'd love to have you on again sometime soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Congressman.